Any questions regarding yesterday's topic?
Danach Pranam Raja. So I just had a clarification question. So yesterday you explained about the Alokik Purusharth and the Lokik Purusharth. So the Lokik Purusharth, I just, based on what I know, the Lokik Purusharth were written by the Rishis or the sages to explain the four Purusharths in relation to the modern society, because it was impossible because it's kind of impossible for us to follow the rules and regulations that Bhagwan had preached in the Veds, because today's community has changed from the past. So is that correct for why the Lokik Purusharths were prescribed, like the main difference between the Lokik and the Alokik Purusharths?
Yes, that's correct. Because now we are not capable enough to follow the Purusharths as explained in the Ved by Bhagwan. So it was necessary for Bhagwan to explain the Purusharths in a modified way, the way we can follow it. That's why he told the Rishis to write down the Purusharths in a different way, in a modified way, and therefore, as per the orders of Bhagwan, the Rishis propagated the Smriti Shastra. But now for us, the condition is that even we are now not capable enough to follow the Purusharths as explained in the Smriti as well.
Okay, Ji Raja, I understand now.
Anyone else? Okay. Continue with the next slok.
Dana Pranam Raja. Should I summarize last class?
Summarize all the 3 slok.
Ye Raja. So the first slok means that Natva is Shri Mahaprabhuji is doing the Mangalacharan. Harim is the one who removes the sorrows and sins from his devotees. Sadanandam is the one with the Anand attribute. Sarvasiddhanta Sangraham is the conclusion of all instructions explained in the Vedic scriptures by Shri Mahaprabhuji, because by Prabodhanartvaya means the one who does not know the rules and regulations that is explained in the Vedic scriptures. Vadami means speaking out. Nishchitam means the scriptures that have been concluded all the rules and regulations about the 4 Purusharths. So Bhagwan has 2 qualities, Harim and Sadanandam. Hari means the one who removes the sorrows and sins from his devotees. Sadanandam means the one who has the Anand attribute. The insight of Sri Mahaprabhuji is that every being who is coming to get initiated has the knowledge of the Dharma Shastra since he is a Hindu Vedic. Sri Mahaprabhuji wants each and every being to know what he wants to attain after following the Pushti Sampradaya. So Sri Mahaprabhuji wants it clear that the final fruit one must get is devotion after following the Pushti Sampradaya. The second slok means that there are 4 Purusharths for learned men. Here, learned men means the one who has read the scriptures and the one who is prepared to follow the instructions given in the scriptures. Therefore, he will be able to know the purpose of his life and can attain the 4 Purusharths. The 4 Purusharths are Dharma, Earth, Kam and Moksha. These Purusharths are described in the Ved by Bhagwan and in the scriptures by the sages. The first Purusharth is Dharma. Dharma can also be known as duty. However, here, dharma means to follow all the duties that are explained in the scriptures. The second purusharth is earth. By accumulating money, one attains earth. However, a being must follow the methods that are explained in the scriptures to attain earth. So the scriptures explain that the way to achieve earth purusharth is by doing the duties that are explained in the scriptures for a being. By doing this, one is able to attain money. For example, Brahmins' duty is to teach the Veds. By teaching the Veds, Brahmins can accumulate money. The third purusharth is Kam. Kam purusharth is to fulfill the desire of our sensory organs by accumulating money with the methods explained in the scriptures. For example, if one steals money, he will fulfill the desire of his sensory organs but not the Kam purusharth. In order to fulfill the Kam purusharth, one has to follow the scriptures. So all these three purusharths are supposed to be attained according to the Shastras. The last purusharth is moksha. Moksha means salvation. The methods explained in the scriptures are the only way to attain salvation. All these four purusharths are all interconnected. And the third slok explains that the four purusharths have been explained in the Veds by Bhagwan and in the Smriti by the sages. Bhagwan has explained the four purusharths and how to attain them. There are two terms, Shruti and Smriti. All the Vedic scriptures have been separated into these two categories. Shruti is the Ved. Ved is written and explained by Bhagwan because they are his direct orders. The term Shruti means listening. Since the Ved was not accessible in the written form, therefore the sages were able to hear the desire of Bhagwan in their samadhi condition. So the sages attained the Ved and started explaining the Ved to their disciples. Smriti was written by the sages with the wish of Bhagwan. At that time, Sri Krishna saw the people were not able to follow what was said in the Ved. That is why Bhagwan instructed the sages to write the Smriti for explaining the Purusharths in a simpler form.
Very nice. Continue with the next look.
Ji Raja. Lokikastu pravakshami vedadadya yata stita dharmasastrani nitischa kamasastrani chakramat trivagra satkaniti natar nirne uchyata. Translation. So the Alokik Purusharths are based in Vedas. Therefore, here Sri Mahaprabhuji doesn't find it necessary to describe those as they have already been explained in the Vedas. So here he describes the Purusharths as explained in the Smritis by sages. Among those four Purusharths, Dharma, Earth, Kam are also clarified nicely elsewhere, and therefore Mahaprabhuji puts his efforts into explaining the Lokik Purusharths. Salvation has been considered as the superior most fruit of a religious life by most of the people. In Vedic religion, multiple methods for attaining salvation have been described, and therefore matters remain confusing for many people regarding the proper means and the ultimate result or type of salvation a being will achieve at the end. Along with fulfilling this purpose, Mahaprabhuji wants the being to be clear regarding the fruit he would attain after salvation and the fruit he would attain by following the devotional path, so that a follower can't confuse himself between these two paths. So this explains that the Alokik Purusharths is explained in the Ved, and therefore Sri Mahaprabhuji doesn't find any purpose in explaining Dharma, Earth, Kam and Moksha. So he explained the Alokik Purusharths and So he explained the Lokik Purusharths and the Smriti by the sages. Moksha is the most superior fruit for many people. In the Vedic religion, there are many methods to attain different fruits. Therefore, Sri Mahaprabhuji wants to be clear about the fruit one wants to attain after following the Pushti Sampradaya. So he will not be confused about the Lokik and Alokik Purusharths.
So now Mahaprabhuji is clarifying the subject matter, the area of subject Mahaprabhuji is going to define here. As Mahaprabhuji in the first shlok said that I'll be explaining the prescriptions as given in the Shastra. The Sangraha, it means the summary or crust of all the Purusharthas as described in the Vedic scriptures. Now Sri Mahaprabhuji wants to define the area. As he explained in the last slok, the Purusharthas have been explained by Bhagavan also, and the same Purusharthas have been described in a simplified way by the sages later on in the Smriti Shastra also. Now Sri Mahaprabhuji wants to say that the Purusharthas in the Ved are very clear, and as they are explained by Bhagavan, Mahaprabhuji has nothing more to say about that. Therefore, in this Balbodh Grantha, Sri Mahaprabhuji want to be touching the subject of Vedic Purusharth. Now remains the Purusharth as explained in the Smriti by sages. So Mahaprabhuji explains that even Dharma, Arth and Kam, these Purusharths are explained properly. And same way, these are not the Purusharths which are very much serious, because these are the Purusharths which are related to the worldly and outer worldly results, on which Sri Mahaprabhuji doesn't want to emphasize at all. Because if someone is running behind attaining money, if someone is completely dedicated for fulfilling his worldly and outer worldly desires, then that person is not a subject matter for Sri Mahaprabhuji, because Mahaprabhuji doesn't appreciate such mentality. Because if you are completely indulged in fulfilling your desires, you are completely just dedicated towards fulfilling the necessities, if a person is completely indulged in fulfilling the desires of his sensory organs, then such a person is not appreciated by Mahaprabhuji, because all these are not related to the soul, these are related to the body. So it is quite a narrow mindset for a person to be like that. So Mahaprabhuji is giving just a hint that if you are interested in attaining Dharma, Arth and Kam, then there are many scriptures. There are Dharma Shastra which will explain you the Dharma. There are Artha Shastra which will be explaining you the methods of attaining money. And same way there are Kama Shastra which will explain you the way to fulfill your desires. So Sri Mahaprabhuji says that therefore I have nothing to comment about it, because it is quite simple to understand those things and people are very much interested, so they all find their own way. Now remains the Purusharth of Moksha as explained by the Rishis in Smriti Shastra. So Mahaprabhuji says that in this Granth I will be explaining the Moksha Purusharth, the Laukika Moksha Purusharth. It means the Purusharth as explained in the Smriti Shastra by sages. Now what's the reason? So Mahaprabhuji explains that the only reason behind doing so is that first of all, moksha is a very important topic and people need to be very clear regarding that, because in our scriptures there have been explained several methods for attaining salvation, and salvation is such a topic about which we cannot use our own brain. For example, if a person is not referring the scriptures, he can understand his duties, basic duties. He can understand the methods for attaining money. He can understand the methods for fulfilling his desire. But salvation is not a topic about which we can use our own head. We need the scriptures, the scriptural ordinance for understanding the method for attaining salvation. And if we commit a single mistake, then the whole process through which we have went through for attaining salvation will just go in vain. So here Sri Mahaprabhuji is concluding all the scriptural ordinances regarding the salvation, regarding the Moksha Purusharth. because several methods have been explained and it is very confusing for many people regarding the proper means. They cannot decide that which means they have to choose for attaining salvation and what sort of result they would be attaining at the end after fulfilling the methods as explained in the Smriti. Therefore, Sri Mahaprabhuji wants the individual beings to be very clear regarding the fruit they would be attaining by following any particular method for attaining salvation as explained in the Smriti Shastra. And Mahaprabhuji even wants to compare between the fruit a person would attain after attaining salvation and the fruit a being would attain by following the devotional path, so that a follower can't confuse himself between these two paths, and the one who is willing to be a follower of the devotional path, even he could be clear about these two methods and these two fruits. So ultimately the subject matter of this text is Laukika Moksha Purusharth. The only Moksha Purusharth as explained by the sages in Smriti Shastra. Sri Mahaprabhuji would be concluding all the scriptural ordinances regarding that Moksha Purusharth. Any questions?
Ji Raja. So
Yes.
can you here it says that Sri Mahaprabhuji is explaining the Lokik Moksha Purusharth in Balbodh. So isn't like moksha is like, how can moksha vary between the in what the alokik purusharths are and the lokik purusharths? How can moksha vary between these two?
Same is the answer, that if we like to follow the methods for attaining salvation as per Ved, we are not qualified enough for doing so. Ved doesn't identify us because we are not following the scriptural ordinances as given in the Ved. So now we need different methods, modified methods, technically modified methods for attaining salvation, and therefore Rishis described those methods in the Smriti. But as they are confusing, Mahaprabhuji wants us to be clear regarding that.
Okay, Ji Raja. So can you please explain what each term means in this fourth slok, like the translation of each term?
Yes, yes. Now the first term is that laukikanstu pravakshyami. So Mahaprabhuji says that I will, pravakshyami means I will speak out, I will explain. So I'll explain the laukika purusharth. Vedad adya yatah sthitaha. It means as the first, adyaha means the first purusharth, the first one, as explained in the Ved, are properly explained there. So Mahaprabhuji doesn't feel like commenting anything upon that. धर्मशास्त्राणि नीतिश्च कामशास्त्राणि चक्रमात् त्रिवर्ग साधक नीति नतन निर्णय उच्यते. So Mahaprabhuji says that dharma, niti means the artha purusharth and kama purusharth have been properly explained in dharma shastra, niti shastra and kama shastra respectively. Chakramat means respectively. So about Trivarga, it means about Dharma, Arth and Kam, and the means for attaining those. Natan Nirnaya Uchyate, it means I am not speaking out anything regarding that. I am not concluding these three Purusharths because they have been even explained there very well.
Okay, thank you, Raja. I understand.
Anyone else? Okay, continue with the next look.
जी राजा मोक्षे चत्वारि शास्त्राणि लौकिके पुरतः स्वतः द्विधा स्वतस्तत्र सांख्ययोगो प्रकीर्तितो त्याग विभागेन सांख्यत्याग प्रकीर्तितो. Translation: There are four major methods for attaining salvation as taught by the sages in Smriti. Those four methods have been classified into two categories. The first one is salvation by taking refuge. The second one is salvation by one's own self. Self-salvation can be achieved by either of the two methods. The first one is Sankhya and the second one is Yoga. In the Sankhya method, a being has to leave all the worldly objects and relations behind and must obtain sannyas. The individual being one becomes free from the bondages of two bodies, the subtle body and the gross body, and ends up with the cycle of birth and death. The being is known to have attained salvation. And this is the most basic definition of salvation. A being can attain salvation through many methods. Among those means, Sri Mahaprabhuji mentions four methods, as explained in the Smriti treatise. Major categories are Swatamoksha, the process through which a being can attain salvation on his own without taking help from any devotee. Pratamoksha, the process in which a being takes refuge in a deity and attains salvation as a fruit from the deity. Two sub-methods under Swatamoksha are Sankhya and Yoga. If a person opts for Sankhya path, he has to abandon his house and attain sannyas. If a being chooses Yoga path, he stays in his home and follows the means for salvation. So this says that there are four methods to attain salvation that Sri Mahaprabhuji explains in this slok. When one is free from the Sukshma Sarir and the Sthula Deha, it means that the Atma has attained salvation. Salvation can be attained in many methods. The main two categories are Swatamoksha and Pratamoksha. Swatamoksha is where a soul attains moksha on his own without the help of another being. Pratamoksha is where a jiva is taking refuge in a deity to attain salvation. Swatamoksha has two subcategories, Sankhya and Yoga. Sankhya is where an individual becomes free from the worldly objects and takes sannyas to get moksha. Yoga is where a person stays in his home to achieve salvation using the Vedic method.
Not the Vedic methods, the methods explained in the Smriti.
Ji Raja.
Yeah. So now Sri Mahaprabhuji explains that the subject matter of this text is limited to Laukika Moksha Purusharth. The Moksha Purusharth as explained by the sages in Smriti. So now Sri Mahaprabhuji explains that technically there are four major methods for attaining salvation as taught by sages in the Smritis, and those four methods have been classified into basically two categories. The first one is that we can attain salvation by taking refuge in some deity, and the other one is that we don't need to take refuge in anyone, we can attain salvation by our own self, by our own methods. So self salvation can be achieved by two methods. The first one is a Sankhya and second one is Yoga. Now what does Sankhya mean? So Mahaprabhuji says that Sankhya method, in Sankhya method, a being has to leave all the worldly objects and relation behind and must obtain sannyas. by obtaining sannyas and by following the methods of sannyas, one can attain salvation through Sankhya. So technically there are 4 methods as explained in the Smriti for attaining salvation. The 2 are Sankhya and Yoga. These are the methods by which we can attain salvation with our own methods, without taking help or taking refuge in anyone. While the second method is that we need to take refuge in some deity, some god, who will be providing us salvation as a result. So here first of all we will be discussing the first part, the methods for attaining self-salvation. Those are 2 methods, Sankhya and Yoga. Now what is the method of Sankhya? So Mahaprabhuji explained that the Sankhya is the method of Tyag. It means we have to obtain sannyas, and only then by following the rules of sannyas a person can obtain salvation. Now an individual being, when he becomes free from the bondages of his 2 bodies, the subtle body, the outer body which we see, which is known as Sthula Sharir, and the gross body which is known as Sukshma Sharir. So after we become free from the bondages of these 2 bodies and ends up with the cycle of birth and death, the being is known to have attained salvation. This is the most basic method of salvation. What does salvation mean? Salvation means that our individual being, our soul, has to be free from the bondages of the 2 bodies and must be in its original form, the Chaitanyansh of Brahma. It means the particle of Chaitanya, element of Brahma. So a being can attain salvation through many methods, and among these methods Mahaprabhuji mentions 4 major methods which are the most authentic one for attaining salvation. Now these are the 2 categories, Swataha Moksha and Parataha Moksha. It means the process through which a being can attain salvation on his own, and the second one will be the process in which a being can take refuge in the deities and attain salvation as a fruit from the deity. So the 2 sub-methods under Swataha Moksha, it means the self-salvation methods, are Sankhya and Yoga. Now if a person opts for Sankhya Marg, then he has to abandon his house, his family, his relatives, his city and everything behind, and must attain the sannyas. And if a being chooses Yoga path, then he must not attain sannyas. He can stay in his own house. He can mentally be detached from everything, and by following the methods of yoga he can attain salvation. So these are the 2 methods. Sri Mahaprabhuji will be explaining these 2 in brief in the upcoming shlok about Sankhya and Yoga as well. We are concluding here for today. If there are any questions, we will discuss those tomorrow.